Welcome to Your 30 and 60, where we bring you the latest news from a skeptical humanist perspective. Insightful, rational, and to the point. Let's dive in. Good afternoon, depending on where you are, maybe good evening. If you are around the world, good morning. However, you are identifying as far as your time zone is concerned. Hey, y'all, and welcome to yet another episode of Your 30 and 60, which is a news show that compiles the top news, national, global, and religious stories from the last 30 days. Now, before we get into the show, I just want to encourage everyone to like and share this video on your various social media platforms. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Skeptic Haven, and also hit that bell for notifications every time that we go live or upload a video. Also, give to the super chats. We will read at the end of the show the super chats if you like the content. Yeah, we will read at the end of the super chats. See, I already messed up my script. Good grief. So make sure you do that. And also, if you like our content, please consider becoming a patron. You can always go to www.patreon.com/Skeptic Haven for more details. Give a little, give a lot, give. Make sure that you keep us on air where we continue to arm you with information. Now, on today's show, we're actually going to be doing a breakdown of the election in 2024, but I am not doing this alone. No. Today, I am joined by my good friend, the president and founder of Black Nonbelievers, Miss Mandisa Thomas, and my other good friend, grassroots advocacy strategist, Miss Sonja Foster. Hey, ladies, how are you all today?
Fine. How are you?
I'm
hanging
here.
in there. Hanging in there. Yeah, this is yeah.
This is a yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody keep on smiling like nothing's happening, nothing's going wrong, like the world is not on fire. Like, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
But, for everybody, I just want to give, this is a big history. Like, a lot of people who actually tune into the show are familiar with Mandisa. Literally, if you Google Black Atheist, her picture comes up because that's just basically who she is. She holds it down for the Black Atheists all around the world. It's the same song. Do. Okay, let me stop. Infringement, right?
Yeah.
But for those who are not familiar with Miss Sonja Foster is a good friend that we've been friends for a very, very, very long time, let me tell you. And as I was just telling the producer and also Mandy's in the back channel, this is the person that actually got me interested in politics in the first place, kicking and screaming, crying, cussing, and the like.
Literally.
Yes. But Sonja has a very extensive background when it comes to politics. She mastered one of her masters. Yes, people, this is a highly educated Black woman. One of her masters is actually in political science. She also was legislative liaison for the African American Family Commission in Springfield, Illinois, and she is now a grassroots advocacy strategist for. Can I say the place, or do we want to keep that silent, Sonja?
Okay, Foster Consulting. Yeah.
Yes, that would be for the Cancer Association, right?
No, that's my own stuff.
Right. Okay. So never mind. But she is all around a person that is like very much so into politics. Even though she told me she's taking a break right now, but has come on the air for me because I said, pretty please, could you please come on air with us so that we can do a breakdown of this election, because I think it's a very important discussion, and she agreed. So thank you, Sonja, for coming on. We appreciate you very, very much. Okay, guys. So are you guys ready to get into this conversation?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, so one of the things that we try to do on 30 and 60 is kind of like round our conversations concerning like what we're talking about with, different articles to kind of ground them. And I think that I pulled a few articles that would definitely help us, like, be able to have like a proper discussion. Um, Crew, I did share the first article because I think that like one of the things that is important to kind of discuss a bit is how did Trump win, right? So this is from Yahoo News by David Knowles. How did Trump win? He improved his standing with Asian, Black, Latino youth, independent voters, and Black women. So I'm sorry, and women voters. So I just want to read a bit from this article, and then I was going to pull another one concerning demographics as well. So it says that the president-elect Donald Trump recipe for victory in Tuesday's election was built on his ability to improve his support from 2020 with several different demographic groups exit poll shows. Here's a breakdown of some of the most notable findings. Okay, so for the popular vote, first off, this is the first Republican president to win the popular vote in over 20 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Sonja was like, yes, I know. I was there. So, so it said that Trump is currently on track to win both electoral college and the popular vote, meaning that this will be the first Republican to do so in 20 years. So we see how this breaks down according to this chart. If you can kind of lean in just a little bit, you see Republican 34% of the vote, independent 34% of the vote, and notably 32% of the vote that actually is people who were registered Democrat, which is interesting. So for the first time in US history, more independents voted than Democrats in the presidential elections. So this is what Reuters said, with 34% of the electorate was made up of independent voters, according to an exit poll conducted by Edison. Just 32% of the vote came from Democrats, while 34% were Republicans. While Harris beat Trump with independents by a margin of 50 to 45%, he gained 4% among independents from his performance in 2020. So I'm going to pause it right there, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this off for a moment. And I'm going to go to the next article because I think this kind of gets into a little bit more of demographics. And I think that this particular article breaks it down a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and give me just one moment to share my screen here. Okay. And this is from anytime that you want to go ahead and put that up, Crew, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so this is from actually US News, which is how key demographic groups voted in the 2024 election. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit because I kind of just, before we kind of just go through, all the, the letters that happen to be written on the screen, I wanted to kind of look at like some of these graphs. Okay, so the first one is where it says that how different Americans voted. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of you. Go away. Go away. Thank you. So it said, this one, it says that Trump commanded the lion's share of votes from white voters, middle-class Americans, and rural dwellers. So overall, okay, where to go? Come back. Okay, there we go. All right, so as you see here, it says that, Trump got over 53% of the electorate of white voters. I want to say for here, we got, 55% of white voters, 42% of Latino voters, 16% overall of Black voters, and then 41% of other race. So basically other races that may not necessarily be listed here would make up that particular demographic. We see that 46% of 18 to 29-year-olds went to Trump. 34 to 44 was 47%. This is interesting. 45 to 65 was about 43%. see what it says. No, it was over 50%. 52% and 65 plus was 51%. Now, kind of want to also look at this one where it talks about men and women. We kind of knew this was kind of going to be a breakdown, but I really wanted to get to how it a gender and race. So if we scroll down a little bit here, let me see if we can get back to it. Okay, hold on, y'all. Okay, here we go. So right here it says the gender and generational divides. We have about, let's see, come on. Okay, so 52% of men versus 43% of women were basically Republican supporters. Then we had over 45 and plus was about 50, what, 6%, I believe. Okay, and this thing is starting to get on my nerves. It's getting on my nerves, people. Okay, here we go. Technology, work with me. Okay, 52% of those who happened to be in the 45 plus went to Trump. Let me see, for women, 45 plus, it was 47%. It talks about even like how we had a stronger leaning or to lean that was black, even though like over like 80% overall of black voters actually supported Harris, you still had a notable number of black folk that actually went towards I believe Trump. And let me see here. This is okay. So I was trying to get to the portion where it actually breaks down gender, and here we go. Yeah, here we go. So this is interesting. So like you see like here where it actually breaks down between gender and race, you had about 40, let me see, 59% of white male voters went going to Trump versus 53% of white women voters going to Trump. And for Latinos, you see that there was a pretty strong support for Trump that was 47% for men and 38% for women. For black voters, 24% of black men who answered the poll went towards Trump versus only 9% of black women. So I would love to get you guys' thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and take this off because I know it's kind of like messing with all of our eyes, especially because it keeps on stop doing like the weird thing, like almost got a seizure just looking at that. So I'm curious to actually know you guys' thoughts, like when you hear like the demographic breakdown and like how different groups decided to vote. We can go into reasons like, that have been talked about as time goes on, but I just want to kind of get you guys' initial thoughts. Mandisa, since you're like the closest to me on top, I'm going to go to you, and then Sonja, I would like for you to go after me. Let's go on this.
Well, I will I will definitely, I'm very, very interested in what Sonja has to say because she has been in politics for so long and having the political science background. But for me, and I just want to be clear that I am not representing Black Nonbelievers as an organization. These are my individual perspectives. By the way, do feel free to look up Black Nonbelievers and support for those who are watching. But I will just say that it's very, very, it is perplexing. Perhaps because, I can only say maybe that there are a lot of young people who are jaded and disengaged with the political process. I was watching a clip of Jimmy Kimmel Live on YouTube, and out in LA, they interviewed some young people who they basically did a trick question about election day being on November 6th, and they were like, oh, I'm gonna go vote. So it's like there were a number of people who didn't even know when election day was. There were people who didn't know who was running. And so that leads me to think that there are a lot of people who may have checked out of the political process, and perhaps just, Trump's antics are just so, they're just so circus-like and theatrical that I really think that people may tune in just to see that. And unfortunately, those have real consequences. Those have very, very dire consequences, especially considering the policies that people who align with him have in place for him to put forth. It is extremely unfortunate that, there are just so many people who, I don't know. I mean, and I think he's saying a lot of the quiet parts out loud. He really is. There's a lot of dog whistling about, those Democrats and those transgender people, as well as those illegal immigrants. There's just so much awful rhetoric. And I don't know. I would hope that him being arrested and also being a convicted felon has not resonated with so many people because of their feelings about the criminal justice system. And that's a huge possibility. And I am just floored. I am really, really floored at the number of people who the polls are saying turned out to support him. We do know that a lot of these counties now on a local level, they have been working ever since 2020 to gain control of, of like local municipalities and on the state levels. And so I think that may have some influence as well. It has just been, I think that even though we see the antics on public display, behind the scenes, they have just been, they seem to have really, really been ramping up their base with things that are clearly nonsensical, things that have no basis in evidence. But it just really goes to show that, how much or how little attention people are actually paying to politics and what is being said. And because it can be very detailed, it can be very boring, but these are things that people need to be paying attention to. And also things that people don't think may impact them. Unfortunately, we see a number of people who may not, who don't seem to be, they don't think that they are impacted directly by what goes on in the political atmosphere. But the truth of the matter is it really, really does. And, it's important to really, really pay attention to those things. And it just makes me wonder, with everything leading up to this election, all of the charges, all of the scandals, all of the things that we have seen this man do. And as a result, even, as a result of under his administration, how many people didn't listen to his former cabinet members? How many people didn't listen to or didn't pay attention to what was going on with those charges against him? And they're just like, oh my gosh, did they really check out of the process that much to the point where they didn't think that this would be a consequential election? Because it is. And I'll stop there because perhaps there is some, perhaps there's some more facts over feelings here.
Will do. Sonja, if you want to go ahead and chime in now with your thoughts, especially with some of the demographic breakdown that we have observed so far.
Okay. Mandisa has some very good points. I was writing some things down. And I said before I started talking, let me put on my professional view because yeah, Cynthia knows kind of where I am right now. So all of what you were saying, I am perplexed in a way, but not really. And because I'm just not. If you look at the history of the country and how we have evolved, sometimes it seems like we're going forward, then we'll go back. I'm not surprised, unfortunately. Um, Matter of fact, I had a conversation with one of my coworkers. She is a Latina, and she said, "I'm just so surprised. I thought that our country would have moved forward more so than we have." And I said, "Well," and I have another coworker who's a white man. They're both, really cool and supportive. I said, "Well, I'm not surprised." Um, I think that, and I've heard someone else say that Donald Trump really is the embodiment of what the root issue of our country is. And this is not a slap against the country. It's just telling the truth. The consumerism, the individualism, looking out for myself. Yes, I want freedom, but I want freedom for me at the risk of taking away someone else's freedom. We know these are things that our country has grappled with for hundreds of years since the beginning. And so we've never really dealt with the root issues many times. So they manifest themselves every so often. So I think Donald Trump is just really a tangible, physical person of what we see in our country. I think in terms of people checking out, I think people have checked out. They're tired of it. They're tired. I mean, Donald Trump, he campaigned for 4 years, basically. When he left office, he kept campaigning. So whether you wanted to hear him or not, he was always in the news. If it was for something, he was always there. So his name never left. And he is the master marketer. He knows how to play the media. He knows how to do all of that. So he was able to craft a message for those 4 years, even in the midst of all the stuff that was happening. So to me, that he stayed in the people's minds. So I think that's one of the reasons why, people were gravitated to him. And I do think it was kind of comical. I hate to admit it, when he was in his first presidency, and I think I would tell Cynthia this, I would tune into the press conferences not to listen to anything he had to say about policy, because it's going to be a show. And I don't know if that's a traumatic response, but after a while, it was a way to cope with it because it was just too much. So when President Biden became in office and he was doing it how it was supposed to be, it became boring. To go back to your word, it was boring, even though he was doing things the right way. But that's the chaotic part of Donald Trump. So I just wanted to say that I think a lot of people were driven by the economy. And we hear that all the time, the eggs, the cost of eggs, the cost of this and that. And even though I've had experience in political, I don't want to say that I'm a political expert, because there's a lot that I don't know, a lot of things that I don't know. We've heard many times when Trump came in during his first presidency, the economy was set up from President Obama. So those first couple of years, he was coming off of that. So of course it was going to do well. And people tend to forget about 2020. But then you also deal with vaccines, and that's the whole COVID response and all of that. So the economy was a big issue. And I think, if I remember correctly, he said back during his first presidency or campaigning that he liked the uneducated. He liked those that didn't really read or understand, because sometimes you have to put things in real simple terms. And one of the criticisms that I've heard from the Democrats, and it's not the first time, is that they speak above people. They are elitist. They don't really get to the heart of what the issue is, even though I think they do. And maybe that's coming from being someone who has gone to school and gotten a college degree. Maybe I can understand things. I don't know. And I don't want to sound elitist when I say that, but he has a way to speak to certain demographics and hit it at the ground level. Whereas sometimes with the Democrats, we don't see that as much. So I think that was one of the issues, especially with young people. You're talking about young people. The issue with Gaza, immigration, that's huge. I've seen a couple of TikToks. Not that you're supposed to get your political source from TikTok, but that's where a lot of our younger people and older people are gravitate to. And you had those who are part of the community, Palestinian community, that were telling their their fellow Palestinians either vote third party or don't vote at all or vote for Donald Trump, because we don't want Kamala Harris in there, because she's part of the Harris Biden administration and they side with Israel, even though Donald Trump will side with Israel as well.
Even more.
Even more now. Yeah.
But they're just the hope, kind of the hope, maybe it won't be as bad. And I think it will be as bad and worse, because he is an opportunist. He is a chameleon. He will change his message to fit whoever he can get to get their vote. Same thing with the evangelicals and all of that. So I think those are the two main issues policy-wise: economics, immigration, Gaza, so forth. And then let's just say what it is. It's racism. It's sexism. It just is. People were already struggling to get a woman president when Hillary Clinton ran in 2016. At least she won the popular vote. Donald Trump won the Electoral College. This time, Kamala didn't get either. She, and so I think there's still an issue. It's still an issue in our country with not only just women, but Black women. She's Southeast Asian. I know we may talk about that later on, but I think, we can get philosophical and professional, all of that about the policy and all of those things. But at the heart of it, again, going back to the issue of our country, we haven't dealt with racism, sexism, things like that. It's going to keep coming back up. And we saw it for real this time. And it shocked people, whereas it didn't shock us, because we've lived with this for hundreds of years. So it's not a surprise to us. So I'll just stop there. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that both of you all made very good points about, what were some of the things that basically was the driving force behind the campaign of Trump and why it carried him over to the end. And, and I know Sonja and I talked about it, and Mandisa, and we talked about this too, that, even though we can talk about issues when it comes to the economy, there was a constant question that was coming up in the media about when people were asked, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? 23% would say yes, they're better off now. So you still had a vast majority of Americans saying that no, they're not better off. And like you mentioned, Sonja, you kind of brought this up too, Mandisa, people are looking at the cost of this, the cost of that, and things of that nature, and not really understanding. And I blame the media with this as well, not really explaining where the inflation came from. That this is not necessarily an invention of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and in Congress that we had this particular go round. That in actuality, inflation started to rise in 2020 when we had, the CARES Act and other acts that were put into place to basically rescue the economy, because we were bleeding dry because of COVID. And if we also want to be real when we talk about Gaza, we could do a whole show about Gaza. Matter of fact, we kind of did. And I think that we should do another one. But, Gaza's issues and also the West Bank, stem all the way back from when Israel became a state in the first place, back in the late 1940s.
Right. Right.
I need people to look up the Nakba. Please look up the Nakba and what that is and how it basically has shaped the issue that we are having right now in the Middle East, especially when we're talking about the Palestine versus Israel. And, and if we fast forward to 2024, and, we've all looked at the horrific, horrendous, terrible pictures and stories and things of the like that are coming out of Gaza. And also the disenfranchisement that is happening to the Palestinians that happen to be in Gaza because of Israel. We are failing to see that, yes, I do agree with the Palestinians that said that, yes, Biden is signing off on weapons and aid to Israel to fight this never-ending war. And basically, if the ICC has charged Benjamin Netanyahu with war crimes and a couple of his ministers, that yes, they should stand trial. But one of the reasons why we had an October 7th is because Trump moved the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. There were people who did not take kindly to that. And he has already said that he feels that the Biden and Harris administration is not giving enough to Israel. They're not giving enough to weapons. We're not giving enough aid. They're not giving enough. So this could actually ramp up, and we're already seeing the spreading of this world to Yemen, to Lebanon. Targeted areas were hit in Iran. I mean, and of course, like, Benjamin Netanyahu has his own issues where he's basically another Trump that was charged with a bunch of corruption charges, knowing that possibly going into a never-ending war would keep him in power in perpetuity for right now, so that he wouldn't have to face the music when it comes to, possibly going to jail his daggum self, right? There is something to be said about that. But if we really go back down to where I think that we can land, because, like, yes, we can talk about policy, Democrats not necessarily being able to communicate their policy as effectively as they should have, or the whole thing about Democrats being seen as elitists because they have a tendency to cater to people with college degrees, or who have a higher sense of utilizing the English language or things of that nature. We can go about that, but, like, as I mentioned, it's a bit, especially when you're looking at the demographics and actually have, like, who supported who. We saw that more men diverge from women, whether if you were black, whether if you were white, especially if you were white, if you were Latino, or even other races, more for Trump than they did Kamala. And so I don't necessarily think, even though, like, the people, like, it's not just misogyny and racism. I said, no, it's not. But you cannot discount that this is not something that's part of the reasons why people decided to vote the way that they did. I remember watching a panel of Black voters on CNN who were Trump supporters. And, I expected some of the things that I heard from some of the men, why they supported Trump. But the women was really interesting to me. I heard the whole thing about she's not black because, Donald Trump saying when they were at the NRB that, one day she just turned black. One day she was Indian and all of a sudden she was black. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how anybody turns a race. If somebody can go ahead and educate me about how all of a sudden you turn another race, I would really like to know. But regardless of that, there was another Black woman that was interviewed who said that, I need somebody who's able to stand up to Putin, who's able to stand up to Netanyahu and some of these other people, who is more manly. And I'm just like, okay, sis, just say that you want a man. Say that you want a man. You don't have trust in a woman being able to lead the government. What are you guys' thoughts? Sonja, why don't you get head started, and then Mandisa?
Yes. That's nice. Yes.
Thank you, Ed McMahon. Johnny?
Yes. I mean, I wish I had a real fancy answer for that, but I just really believe that's what it is. There are people who don't want to see a woman president in the United States. I don't know why. There are people who are mad to see her as vice president. Yeah. So, and I heard someone say, you might have said it, I don't remember, that when President Obama was elected twice, that was kind of a one-off because, and we were not going to let that happen again. We already had two cycles of a Black man. There's no way we're going to have a Black woman. I don't, whatever. And I watched that when Donald Trump was at the convention in Chicago, the journalism journalist convention, and I watched that live while it was happening. And I laughed because I think it was just the way of the shock of it. But again, that's Donald Trump. He does the shock value, but I'm like, he's very serious about that. We don't know what she is. I'm like, man, please. So yes, there's an inherent issue with women. And I've heard other people say, well, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or not. You know, if it was, you know, I'll vote for. No, you won't. No, you won't. So just stop with that. And yeah, I don't know why we don't want to have a woman president. The whole thing about the mess. I look at other countries. I don't know if you all do it. I watch United Nations. They have United Nations channel on YouTube. And yes, I will sit there and watch that.
Yes, I know, girl, because I know how you roll, girl.
I will do that.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the lady. I want to say maybe Trinidad or Tobago. I can't remember what country she's from. I think she's the prime minister or she's a higher position. And to me, how powerful she is. And I mean, she checked those people real quick about Donald Trump, about all those things. And I'm like, that's the kind of person. She leads a nation, or she is a high ranking, position. What is with America? America talks about how strong we are and how we welcome everyone and how we give equal opportunities and all of that to a point. We'll give equal opportunity to a point. And then no, you're done. You've gone as far as you can go. We need a man to lead this. So I don't know why. I wish I had an answer. But I don't. I guess it's steeped in the founding fathers had said nothing about founding mothers. I heard someone actually say that. So it's supposed to be the founding fathers. It's founding fathers for a reason. I just rolled my eyes and walked away. But it's embedded, and I don't know why. But I'm still hopeful that we'll have a woman president one day. I would love to see it. But I just don't. I don't know why. I'm sorry. It's not very perfect. I just don't know why.
No, don't, because this is just a conversation. Please don't. No one is going to mark you off for professionalism, trust. So you're fine.
Yeah. So,
Mandisa, what are your thoughts?
I think about, oh my gosh, there's so many thoughts here, right? So I really thought that the country would have learned from what happened in 2016.
Yeah.
That even with, Hillary Clinton's less than, stellar record or background, that we would not have the current Supreme Court that we have. We would not be seeing the fight for reproductive health. We would not be seeing this, we would not have had the COVID crisis that we have. And unfortunately, it seems like people have very short memories. It seems like we don't learn from history well. And when I think about, just like I said, historically, right? Like how patriarchy is just baked into the fabric of this country and even throughout the world. I wrote something on my Patreon. For those who are subscribed to my Patreon, there's a public post that I wrote that there are so many people who are absolutely like Donald Trump in their everyday lives. We watched this man lie, like he told blatant lies in the public square. It was like everything he accused the Democrats of doing, that's what he was doing. That's what the Republican Party was doing. And I think people just became so desensitized to watching him lie just to everybody. And I mean, it's just sad how there are so many people who are, and we can look at someone like that and say, wow, that's psychotic. That is truly psychotic. But because, and for those of you who are, we grew up in the 80s, right? We grew up, and I'm from New York. I'm from Queens, not too far from where Donald Trump grew up. And people think that he identifies with them. I'm like, no. This man was born into privilege. He was born a rich white man who has embodied privilege and racism and corruption since he was born. And I think it's a shame how there have been so many instances and so many accounts of how many people he screwed over, about how he's run his businesses into the ground, how he has, inflated the success of, his show, and just, and I just am really, really still, again, flabbergasted at how many people don't seem to remember that. And it doesn't take a college degree to see all that. I'm just like, even if you're a person like myself who has a high school diploma, right? Game can recognize game. And this man has been playing a very dangerous game for a very, very long time. And he truly does not care about anybody who cannot do anything for him, and who is at a lower economic standing than him. And we saw that. He said, well, we had the best economy, we had the best response to COVID. I am like, are you kidding me? You know how many people died?
Over 1 million in the United States died.
How many people? I'm like, how can people forget that? And unfortunately, how many people really thought COVID was a hoax? There are people who still think that COVID was a hoax. And I think it's because they felt like they were their rights were being infringed upon. They couldn't do all the things they wanted to do. The government was just simply trying to hold them hostage. Like, no, how about we try to keep each other safe? It's like Sonja said, it's like, okay, can you think about someone other than yourself? Think about your family members. Think about people around you in your communities who are impacted by this. I'm like, this man has never, I'm like, it doesn't take a college degree. It doesn't take a background in political science to go even Google or look at Donald Trump's history and how he has maligned so many people and so many things.
Yeah, I just want to. Oh, go ahead, Sonja. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add some of the things as Mandisa was talking. And I may get in trouble for saying this. I'm just saying. She brought up the point of people have short memories. We forget things. One thing about our country, which I think is a wonderful thing at times, but it can be hypocritical, is that we can be forgiving. We can have a short-term memory, but it depends on who we are forgiving and what we're forgetting. I think about R. Kelly and the stuff that he did. He's in prison. We all know this, but then you still have a group of people who support him no matter what. I'll be honest, there's sometimes his songs that I listen to, and it's a struggle because I like his music, but then I sit there and think about, well, who was he singing to when he wrote that song? Or who?
Man, listen, I still have a hard time putting down 12 Play and the Chocolate Factory. I'm being honest here, people.
Hey, I get it. And so you'll ask people who will say, well, how can you listen to him, whatever the things that he's done? Well, I learned to separate him from his artistry. It's two separate things. I hear the same people say about Donald Trump. I've learned to separate him as a person from his ability to be president. No one is perfect. No. And this, to me, that's the hypocrisy of it all, because if it was flipped around and promised, if Kamala was in office, every little thing she would have done would have been criticized to the 1000th degree. She wouldn't have been able to get away with anything. But then that goes back to privilege of being a man.
That part, yes, that's what I was going to say, and I'll expound on that in a moment. Yes,
yeah, privilege of being a man and privilege of being white,
a white man. Yeah. And so we're dealing with that as well. So that's what I want to say in terms of short-term memory. The other thing in terms of why maybe he was voted back into office, from what I've heard over the years, and I can see it, Democrats tend to focus more so on civil rights, equality, things like that, which are important. Republicans tend to focus more on bottom line money. How is this going to come down to the bottom line? If I think about back to what Kamala during her campaigns, and I didn't watch a lot of her speeches, she did talk about that, but she also talked about moving forward and a new whatever. And most people, yeah, that's fine, but I got you know, lower the price of things. So I think historically that's what the Republicans have been able to do. Everything goes back to the bottom line. Okay, you want to talk about equality and civil rights. Well, how does that translate to the bottom line? How, if you want to talk about protecting children, how does that turn, you know, how does that equate to how much money do we have to spend? How many? So that's where people are right now. And so that's what they see. And we, again, going back to the media, and I will say from people like maybe Al Sharpton and others who are now, when you synonymous with civil rights and things like that, individuals like him, well, a lot of people are tired. They don't want to hear that anymore. And so that is equated to the Democrats. And so I think it's just the messaging as well, not only the pitch, that the tone that they use, the elitist tone sometimes, but focusing on the wrong, I won't say the wrong thing, but not crafting that message to really hit people where it matters to them the most. And that deals with economics, money, taxes, all those types of things. So I just wanted to say that.
You know, so to come back to that, you know, we're basically talking about a narrative. And, you know, one of the political pundits that I listened to, Kyle Kulinski, talked about how the Republicans have a narrative that they're always pushing. And one of the things that they did well, and I would say that Donald Trump embodies this, is the whole thing about the reason why you're not doing well is because, you know, these people, these elitist Democrats are in office and they're not really thinking about you as far as like, you know, like these high prices with stuff. Like when I was in office, I did this, I did that, and you know, we had the lowest, we had the best economy ever, we had the best prices ever. The gas prices were so low, they were so low, you know, and so that's the reason why I need to be back in office. But and then also the illegals and the black, they're still in the black jobs. That's what they're doing, you know, things of that nature. And one of the things that he said is that, you know, they always are, you know, obfuscating blame to other groups of people that have nothing to do with the reason why we're having issues specifically here when it comes to, you know, monetary gain, fiscal gain, things of that nature. So your problems is illegal aliens. Your problem is they're still in the black jobs and all this other stuff. Your problem is that Kamala would not admit that she's black. Your problem is that, you know, the Democrats are raising prices and they hate Israel, whatever. You know, just like stuff like that. Things that they're constantly throwing red meat to their base in order for them to basically latch on to the propaganda that's being pushed out in order for them to say, well, that's the reason why. No fact checking whatsoever. Even got mad. JD Vance and Donald Trump got mad in real time when they were on the debate stage getting fact checked, right? And unfortunately, we don't necessarily have that on the left, where we say like, no, what your real problem is the author, you know, your oligarchs that's right here in this country, your millionaires and billionaires that are actually spending money. Think about it. The richest man in the world, Elon Musk, an immigrant from South Africa, spent $75 million helping Donald Trump to win the White House. $75 million. Jeff Bezos, one of the other richest men in the world from Amazon, did not decide it because he owns the Washington Post, told them unilaterally not to endorse a candidate, even though that they've endorsed the candidate. The last time they did not endorse a candidate was over 36 years ago. And he has government contracts as well. Wanting to see, like, just in case, I don't want to, like, sway anybody or have anybody that's in office that would, cause my money to be messed up, right? And then, of course, you have people quit the Washington Post. You have people leave the Washington Post. You even have people, subscribers to the Washington Post, cancel their subscriptions because of this. And, and knowing that, well, just in case if Donald Trump actually gets back into office, that's going to make them richer. And here's the thing. And I kind of want to bring this up too. Crew, if you can go ahead here, let me go ahead and share my screen, because like the next thing I kind of want to talk about was his promises, right? And some of the things that he said that he wanted to do. So like if we look at like some of, and this is from the Midas Touch, matter of fact, like guys, I want to make sure that like before the end of the show, crew, if you can just go ahead and just put this in like the description, like all the articles that we're actually coming from, even if we don't actually get to all of them today, that's fine, so people have like stuff that they can be able to read and look back to. So, some of the things that he talks about is budget on taxes, no taxes on tips, interest on car loans will be deductible, no taxes on Social Security payments, no taxes on overtime income. And this is from the Midas Touch. He was saying that not necessarily, talking about policies that was about Project 2025, because he actually scolded the Democrats for putting too much emphasis on Project 2025, even though I think that they should have, because if you read that crap, it's quite scary. But regardless, so we also have, across the board income taxes for every taxpayer, make previous tax cuts permanent. Now, here's the thing, guys. One of the things that you have to understand is that right now, when Trump instituted his tax cuts back in 2017, the tax cuts that were on corporations and people and millionaires and billionaires were made permanent. The tax cuts on people like you and I that was on Main Street actually had a sundown date. Okay? So please keep that in mind. Federal budget will be cut by 33%. And one of the things that, Trump even mentioned that he wanted to do was put Elon Musk in a cabinet position so that he can be the person that can kind of slice up the budget. That's some scary stuff, let me tell you. Right here, right. Repealed the Impound Control Act in 1974, which prohibits the president from withholding funding approved by government in their budgets that he disagrees with. And interest rates on credit cards will be capped at 10%. Actually, I don't have a problem with that. But, if you look at this, like issues about immigrants, all migrants, including those with pending asylum claims, will be taken into custody and deported immediately by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. That's not even 10 years after the Constitution was ratified, people. I just want to let you know that. Birthright citizenship will be ended by executive order. All persons who were born in the United States to migrant parents will have their citizenship revoked and will be deported immediately. So just think about this. Birthright citizenship will be ended by executive order. Now, I don't necessarily know how he's going to handle that, only because, birthright citizenship is in the Constitution by the 14th Amendment. I would also like to say to all Black people who happen to have come here via your progenitors were slaves, that's how we got our citizenship. Our citizenship was granted through the 14th Amendment by birthright citizenship. Moving on. Border will be closed with no migrants entering the United States by moving thousands of U.S. troops from overseas to be stationed to the southern border. I was listening to Joey Reid today. They had a couple of political pundits that was on there that was saying that if you're looking specifically at the jobs that are happening with migrants, especially when it comes to farming, that will actually lower our GDP by $98 million. So who's going to actually pick the lettuce? Who's going to pick the grapes? And then if we go further down,
that's a Black job.
Oh, mm-hmm. Oh, okay. My bad. Yeah. That's a Black job. Okay. I never picked lettuce in my life. except when I was at the grocery store with my mother and she told me exactly how to pick lettuce. Make sure that you don't pick any lettuce heads that have brown leaves on the sides. Don't do that.
Well, if you look at Florida's Black History curriculum now, they say supposedly slavery was kind of a vocational training program. So you probably get
Yes,
job training and
yes,
learn how
yes.
to do it well.
Yes, we've talked about that on shows on Skeptic Haven and other shows that I've been on. Is that that slavery actually taught us like different vocational training that we can use actually to make a career. So thank you, slavery. You should be grateful, Black people. Stop asking for those stupid reparations.
Saying.
Just saying.
Right. And I'm sorry, there is something just inherently dangerous about people from private businesses thinking that, or trying to run the federal government. Now, granted, there's a reason why there are checks and balances in place in the federal government. And Donald Trump during his first presidency didn't like that. He really
Right.
thought that he could come in as a, as a quote unquote corporate business person
He
and
wants to
just
be an
get rid
emperor.
of people.
He wants to be an emperor. He wants to be a
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
dictator, be able to rule the United States like he rules his businesses.
right. And that's not, and I mean, again, people are forgetting that he ran his businesses into the ground and
Big
talking about speaking of
time.
Elon Musk. When he bought and took over Twitter, he got rid of 90% of the staff.
Yeah, and lost
So,
and Twitter's value has been decreased by over 80%.
and that made me that made me think of Sonja, what you said about Republicans thinking about the bottom line and them always thinking about their bottom line as to how much money they can make and how much money they can save. How
Hmm.
much can they save by cutting the workforce and cutting on labor costs? And and Cynthia and you and I talked about this, before, where of course, Democrats and what they consider socialism as being such a bad thing, actually seeks to equalize something that has been the case, been discriminatory for years. People not getting paid living wages, people
Right.
not being able to benefit on this concept of this American dream that others have been able to, benefit from. And so, in trying to at least level things out and give marginalized groups and disenfranchised groups an opportunity, these quote unquote business people don't want that because they're thinking, well, I'm going to lose money.
Right.
They're like, oh, okay, well, this means I'm going to have to spend more, and we can't have that. I mean, it's just,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. And the crew wanted me to actually highlight this particular point for promises that he would like to do in the next 180 days. Homelessness will be criminalized, and all homeless in the United States will be arrested and given the choice of incarceration or admission into a new federal tent city for treatment. And then the next one is federal tent cities for arrested homeless. Homeless rehabilitation centers will be fully staffed with doctors, psychiatrists, and social workers. Now, let me tell y'all something, people. Being a fellow social worker, one of the things that can combat homelessness is being sure to get people into homes. And housing is a huge crisis that we are facing all throughout the United States. I could just remember my previous inception as a case manager. Trying to help people transition to housing was one of the most difficult portions of my job because housing, especially for people who may be on Medicaid, who may be on SSI, which is like Social Security, on SSDI, on Social Security disability, and also those who, and in those, if you're on SSDI or SSI, for behavioral health issues or what have you, those are always going to be lower monthly payments that are going to be given to you versus a person who's just on straight Social Security because they happen to be a senior. So trying to be able, if you think about it, In the United States alone, if you look at the average person that's like on SSI or SSDI, they're going to give between $700 to $800 a month. A month. That is supposed to help pay you rent. That's supposed to help you put food on the table. That's supposed to help you pay all of your utility bills. And you should be able to use that money to save for a rainy day. Did you think about that? So if you can just imagine that your president and your executive in chief wants to round up people who happen to get a modest to no income whatsoever and just put you either in jail or put you in a tent city and just have like people just tend to you every now and then. That sounds like internment camps that, used to happen to like people like the Japanese during World War II, that happened to Jewish people during World War II, that happened to even Black people. I want people to look up the Punch Bowl in Mississippi. Look that up, please. And even look up vagrancy laws that happened after slavery. So, and basically the treatment that has happened to people because they could not afford to keep a roof over their head. What are we going to? What are we going to? Um, yeah. If you all don't mind, I kind of because I feel a little despondent right now. So I want to go to some measures that, because like we can talk about all the horrible-ish things that have happened, but this show is called 30 and 60, so we're going to try to round out the 60 as much as possible. Let us talk about some of the things that has happened this election that actually I think that we should celebrate if we want to look into that. So I'm sharing my screen now. Crew, if you can go ahead and put that up for me. Okay, so this is actually from the AP. So Black women notch historic Senate wins in an electoral year defined by potential first. So even though that we didn't get our first Black Southeast Asian president, we did get Black women that actually have joined the Senate. This is a photograph of the Democrat in Maryland. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah. Democrat Maryland Maryland Senate candidate Angela also Brooks, 2024 in College Park, Maryland. And that is her finding out that she won her seat. So Delaware's Lisa Blunt Rochester and Maryland's Angela also Brooks prevailed in their races, doubling the number of Black women ever elected to the Senate. Ever. Sonja, you can remember our Black senator that actually came to the United States Senate back in the day. Can you remember her? You remember who she is, right?
Yeah, Karen Mosley Braun. Mm-hmm.
Carolyn Mosley Braun. That's right. Hmm. Yes, who is still in the Chicagoland area, walking around saying things, eating Garrick's popcorn. It's great. So from 2 to 4, and then in Delaware, voters also elected Sarah McBride in an at-large House race, making her the first openly transgender person elevated to Congress. So the victories in an election year defined in part by historic firsts, even with issues such as affirmative action and LGBTQ inclusion driving deeper divisions. Making these milestones doing two things. One, it celebrates the increasing diversity that we are seeing in women's political representation, whether it be in a state or nationally, says Kelly Dittmer, director of research at Rutgers University Center for American women politics. But at the same time, it reminds us that we have more work to do, says Dittmer, noting that U.S. women overall aren't represented equitably in elected offices, and that Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans, as well as Native Americans, lag behind their share of the population. Other historic firsts in the Senate on Tuesday, including New Jersey's Andy Kim, who became the first Asian American elected to represent the Garden State in the Senate, and also the first Korean American, shout out to Korea, elected in the Senate. And Republican Bernie Moreno of Ohio became the first Latino to represent the state. So there were some historic firsts when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, which, by the way, is not just like a buy in order for you to be able to get like a nice seat or things of that nature. That's not what diversity, equity, inclusion means. It just basically just means that people from different backgrounds are actually going to be considered for positions. So, and then the next thing I wanted to highlight before I bring Sonja and Mandisa back into the conversation is ballot measures that actually passed during this election. So, and I'm sharing my screen again, crew, if you want to go ahead and put that up, please. So this is actually coming from NBCnews.com. So ballot measures, voters across the country are set to decide near like 150 ballot measures. So let's see, let's go ahead and go to abortion was a big one that was on the ballot. So abortion rights were won in Colorado, in Arizona. Unfortunately, it was not won in Florida by Amendment 4, but I like to say something about Florida specifically, because if you take a look at this if this response right here, it shows that over 6 million voters voted to make a right to abortion in the amendment, in a part of the Florida Constitution. Only 4.5 million said no. But the 4.5 million said no. And the reason why that actually passed is because Florida is a silly state that says that you can't just have a simple majority to actually pass ballot measures. You have to have over 60%. And as we see right here, that the percentage was 57.2%. So I will definitely say to Florida, even though that your rules are dumb, that congratulations to you to actually have the electorate come out to say that they did want Amendment 4 to be passed, and they did want women to actually have the right to autonomy when it comes to being able to actually have the wherewithal to select if they were going to have an abortion or not. So I'm going to celebrate the big wins. I'm going to celebrate the little wins, people, because that's what I plan on doing right now before I drink myself into cirrhosis. Sonja, you're a Florida person. What say you?
Well, first I say don't do that. Don't do that.
No promises. No promises.
Just because if you do that, then the healthcare may be trash and you can't get treatment and all that kind of stuff. So let's do that. I mean, yeah, Florida. I was at a place when we were watching the election results, and so when it came across that Amendment 4 did not pass, you heard this, and for it to be close. But we also know that there was a lot of intimidation by the governor down here shocker, to get the opposing message on there, sending police supposedly or law enforcement to housing. So to me, I guess maybe that's another reason why to link it kind of back to what's going on nationally and what's about to possibly happen nationally. Maybe because I have lived in a state for 9 years that has been like this and has progressively gotten worse. I don't know if I become immune to it or just desensitized to it or just tired or whatever it is, but it's almost like some of us down here were talking. The rest of the country may start to feel what some of our states like Texas, Florida, we've kind of been feeling already in different forms. And now we're going to see it at a more national level. It doesn't help that, the president-elect is from Florida. It doesn't help that, our governor, I think.
New York. You just have a place in New York.
Yeah.
He's in Florida, Florida. Yeah. Florida. I don't know if New York would want to accept him. I don't.
Well, no, New York doesn't. New York doesn't claim him anymore.
Yeah.
They don't claim him. They was like, get the hell out.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to also put up Maryland also had passed the for right to abortion measure. Missouri passed it as well. I was very surprised at Missouri.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was like, whoa, that's interesting. Montana also passed. These are all like states that have simple majority. Nebraska passed it. New York passed it to codify it. Nevada passed it as well. Unfortunately, South Dakota did not pass it, but they're weird. Arizona did not pass it, unfortunately. Colorado did not get enough of the vote. Connecticut, but this is Colorado unfortunately did not pass ranked choice voting. They did pass the right to abortion though. Let's see. Connecticut did pass a no excuse absentee voting amendment. Let me see. District of Columbia, shout out to DC, did pass ranked choice voting. Let's see. Iowa passed citizenship required to vote. So I'm like, I thought it was always a requirement to vote, but whatever. Let me see. Idaho did not pass ranked choice voting. Idaho did pass amendment to make citizenship a requirement to vote. Let's see, Missouri did as well, sort of North Carolina. Nevada did pass top 5 ranked choice voting. They increased their voter ID requirements, bummer, but and also Ohio did pass like citizen redistricting commission. Unfortunately, because we already know that when we have citizen redistricting committee, that always goes mostly red and blue. And also, let's see, citizenship requirement was in South Carolina. No shit. Let's see. Top 2 primary elections, South Dakota did not pass. And this actually provides for open primary elections for the offices of governor, state's legislative office, county office, and the United States Senate, or the United States Senate, state's House of Representatives. Okay, so guys, that is going to be in the show notes as well. So make sure you just read a little bit more about that, about the different measures that did pass.
I would add Amendment 3 for Florida as well, that it failed as well. Amendment 3.
Amendment 3.
Legalizing recreational marijuana.
Yeah, I see that. I was just going to show that Florida did not pass legalized marijuana, but I don't know what else you would do in Florida. And then North Dakota did pass legalizing marijuana. So does South Dakota. Let's see. California did do a right to marriage and repeal a Prop 8, which repeals Proposition 8 has established a right to marry in California Constitution. So they made it codified that same-sex marriage is legal and accepted in California. Looks like California also raised its minimum wage to $18 per hour. Let's see, Arizona had a proposition to decrease minimum wage, and they said no, thank you. Okay. Let's see, Massachusetts had an increase of minimum wage for tip employees. Unfortunately, that did not pass. And then proposition to minimum wage and earned paid sick time to 13.75 per hour in Missouri did pass. So so there was, also just mention like different things that's on the on the ballot when it comes to, elections. One of the things that I always wanted to tell people, which is so important, is that, as much as like it's important for you to be able to elect your top officials, there's the down ballot as well. Guys, this year, the Illinois ballot was insane because, especially in the Chicago area, we had over 70 judges.
That's a
70
lot.
judges to vote on. Let me tell you, shout out to the what is it called? Oh, Jesus. Mary and Joseph on the atheist show. What is that in Injustice? Yeah, it was like let me see if I can find it. Uh Injustice. Yeah, watch for judges. Yeah, that's what it's called. Injustice Watch Chicago. So, Injustice Watch is a nonprofit that actually puts out the list of judges that are running in the area that's going to be on the ballot. It lists like what their policies are, what some of their records are, how they ruled in certain cases, and why this will matter to you. So shout out to them because that was like a very helpful a document in order for us to take into the ballot to the ballot box with us in order for us to be able to choose like who would be better for the job. And yeah, so I just wanted to just to preface that I think that we actually had some questions, crew, before we wrap up. I wanted to get to. I don't know if we actually got a chance to
Also,
uh
Cynthia, I'm sorry
yeah,
if I may interrupt.
yeah,
We talked about this as well, that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson lost his
yes.
bid for governor.
Yes,
So
he
that is
did.
also a
Yes. Many soldier lost, people. Let him skulk back into his hidden dark cave with his pizza and porn. Uh, I didn't say it, yo. I didn't say it. Okay, Kat, you okay, that's fine. You didn't. I thought that there was a question. Let me see if I thought I saw a question that I'm going to try to scroll into.
Well, I will say I will respond to a comment, and I'm not going to say who it
Yeah,
is,
go
but
ahead.
it's like,
Go ahead.
there are people who still promote this awful narrative that we are speaking of Black genocide because we promote a woman's right to reproductive health. That is not the same as promoting killing Black children.
Right.
There are a number of the mortality rate for Black women is very, very high. It is astronomically high.
Yeah.
And we are concerned about the health of all of our citizens, whether that's men, women, children, LGBTQ folks. That is the entire spectrum of reproductive health. And people have a right to make those choices about being able to have or whether they don't want to have children. And even if some of the roots of reproductive health are a bit sketchy, we're not being dishonest about that. What is dishonest is this idea that that the other side really cares about the health of our children. They don't.
Right.
that
Right.
they care about the health of their mothers. Uh, they don't.
Right. Um, Crew, if you could please, because I want to speak to this a little bit more, just to piggyback on what Mandisa said, could you please highlight the comment specifically from Pragmatic Crystal, the very last one concerning about deaths per 100,000? Thank you. I want to read this. 202 202,249.5 deaths per 100,000 live births for Black women compared to 19.0 for white women, and actually equate into deaths. So, and that's all I like to, for the person that, mentioned the whole thing about, Black women basically promoting the death of children. I want to, run some facts by you. Okay. When Mandisa would talked about the maternal rate for Black women being very high, it's actually 3 times higher than it is for white women in the United States. And that was before Roe v. Wade. Okay. Another fact to know is that states that have abortion bans now, the mortality rate for women and the mortality rate for infants have actually gone up. Another thing that you need to come to realization is that the issue that we're also having is that people are not able to get care when they are pregnant, even though that they want to carry the pregnancy to term, if there is a problem with the pregnancy. There is a story of a Texas woman. There's a few Texas women who have either lost their life or have become sterile because they were not getting the interventive care, like getting like a thing called a DNC when they actually were pregnant and when they had a non-viable pregnancy. Let me tell you something. When a woman or a person who has the ability to get pregnant is pregnant, that is the most dangerous time in their life. Anything can go wrong in the time period, especially in the first trimester of pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancies, which is when a fetus is developing in the fallopian tube, are not viable.
No, they're
That
not.
that fetus will not be able to develop into a full human being. It will not. So abortion bans are not about using a gurney as contraception. It's about making sure that health care decisions are being able to be made when people's lives are in danger. I want to also ask you this, sir, who's making that twang. Is it okay for a 10-year-old who was raped by their mother's boyfriend to carry a child to term and raise that child? Is it okay for a 13-year-old girl in Mississippi to raise a child who hasn't even been able to go to the 7th grade? Is it okay for a Black woman in Atlanta to be laid up dead because the doctor decided at the last minute to give her a DNC when it was already infection that was setting in her womb when her pregnancy was non-viable? Is it okay for another Black woman in South Carolina to be criminally charged for having a miscarriage because even though that she sought help from an ER in South Carolina? Are those things okay? Well, guess what? That's what's happening. That's the reality. And that's because of Roe v. Wade being overturned. So if you want to talk about people promoting the death of children when you are advocating for abortion rights, miss me with that. And now, crew, I would like to do my final skeptical.
Can I add something?
Yes, you can certainly add more to that, Miss Sonja Foster. Before I go into my final skeptical insight, please do, please.
So I come from the Christian perspective. So we always talk about the sanctity of life, and yes, the sanctity of life is important. But what I have an issue with those who make those types of statements about killing Black babies is that, and protecting life. Okay, if you want to protect life, that's fine. Yes, you protect the life of the unborn. But for me, as a believer in Jesus, a Christian, if you're going to talk about protecting life, it's not just the unborn. It's from the time once they are born through the life cycle until they end. Protecting the life of those who are incarcerated in prison, whether they are falsely incarcerated or they are there because of a crime that they did. You're protecting the life of those who are homeless, the ones that they want to round up and put into federal centers and things like that, because people are homeless for different reasons.
There's
some people who are homeless because they want to be homeless, and it may be hard to understand, but they may have hard family situations where they're like, I'd rather be on the street than have to deal with that. You have people that have been kicked out of homes. You've been people for mental health, all of those things. So if we're going to talk about, and this is the issue that I have with Christians, even though I'm a Christian, and we
talk about it, talk to your people
many times, then we talk about, is it really protecting life or being pro-life, or is it just protecting the unborn? Because it seems like once the babies get here, people forget about them and they drop them. Talk about adoption, and you talk about that. Well, if there are babies who are born from different marginalized groups where people don't want to adopt them because they are not aesthetically pleasing, or they don't fit their family, whatever, then they go into the foster care system. And we know that Black children are disproportionately placed in the child welfare system. Many times they go through the child welfare system and then they age out, and then there are not resources there to help them while they're there. And we know, so to me, when people say killing children and promoting things like that, I do have an issue with that. Yes, I believe in pro-life. Yes, I do believe in the sanctity of life. I believe that life begins at conception, but if you're not going to protect, if you're telling women, if you're taking away the woman's choice, I'm not telling them to do that. I've had women come up to me and say, should I have an abortion? Should I not have an abortion? I'm like, I can't tell you that. I will tell you from this biblical perspective what it says, but at the end of the day, it's not my body. It's your body. It's your life. It's your experience. That's between you, God, your doctor, whatever you believe, what have you, because I would want someone to tell that to me, because you don't know what my situation is. When I worked at a rape crisis center, I really got that, because you had women who were being raped. When you talked about the little girl, I remember when I was a teacher, and there was a story, and it was a real story in the local small town that we were in, that it was a 10-year-old girl who had been molested by a family member and was pregnant. That was not a falsity. That was real life. So are you saying that because she should be forced to carry that child or what have you, because it was? So my thing is, if you're going to talk about pro-life and you're going to talk about protecting life, it's not just the unborn. It's about the woman. It's about, most women, and that has to be a horrible situation to have to be in. Most women, if they have to deal with, if there's a child, that the child is no longer alive in the womb, or they're, whatever, that's a hard situation. And to see women who have died because doctors were afraid to possibly be criminalized. I mean, that was the issue, that we would see commercials here in Florida all the time with doctors saying, I hate having to tell a woman that I can't do this because I think about my own daughters or my own wives, and we're putting the woman's life in jeopardy. So both lives matter. Both lives are important, the life of the unborn child and the life of the mother. So if someone's going to come to me and say something about pro-life and protecting life, let's protect not just the child's life, but the mother's life. Once the child is here, then let's take care of them as they grow into adulthood and so forth. And let's protect all life. Let's not nitpick which lives we want to protect.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, no, you're fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that when we're having this conversation about pro-life versus pro-choice, it's not about pro-life or pro-choice. It's about anti-abortion plus abortion. Mm-hmm. Because like, we can make that argument about people who happen to be anti-abortion saying that they're pro-life, but they're not. Mm-hmm. For the simple fact of the matter is that you're okay with, people having their lives ripped away from them because they got raped or molested. You're okay with actually taking away resources and also government safety nets in order for people to have insurance. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the things that we're having issues with now is this person is talking about, repealing Obamacare or the ACA, and replacing it with something new and better. But, the last thing that they tried to replace it with was a measure to take away pre-existing condition coverage, and then also, as I was telling this to you, Sonja, and Mandisa, that, I have a kid, I have a child, And I use like some of the programs in order for him to be able to get childcare that actually has free breakfast and lunch while he's in school, you know. And I mean, my copay is lower because of, you know, because of like income to debt ratio, in order for me able to actually work and actually keep my kid in school. But you know, the same people who are screaming that they're pro-life and they're pro and they're anti-abortion and things of that nature, when it comes to actually, you know, expanding programs that would be able to resource kids and resource mothers and resource families in order for them to be able to take care of kids, they want to go ahead and take those particular programs away. So again, miss me with that, you
Right.
know.
And they are following people who have no idea of what it means to, you know, to have no, you know, they to not have those resources.
Right,
Many of them have no idea of what it
right,
means to be born into poverty and to
right,
have to deal with any of these issues. Many of these people have not. They have been raised with privilege and never had to deal with it, but yet they want to legislate on
right,
behalf of how they grew up,
right,
which will kill so many so many people will suffer as a result.
right. And my whole thing is like, you know, me and Sonja have like, yes, my very good girlfriend is a theist, guys. Let it go. It's really okay. And that's fine. My whole thing, and she actually believes this too, because she just said it, that even though that she believes certain things, she does not believe that her beliefs should be legislation. And
Right.
that's where we're at. That is where we're at. I don't necessarily want, even though, like I said, yes, I want a secular government, but I'm not going to advocate for the government making people not believe in God. I think that those are things that are personal and that people should come to realizations on themselves. No one beat me into my stances on how I think about things now.
Mm-hmm.
No one did. These
Yeah.
are things that I came to on my own. And even with people who actually want to, you know, who are still believers in Jesus, or believers in Allah, or believers in Brahma, or whatever you believe, that's their belief system. But I do believe that people should have the freedom to practice whatever belief system that they want. It's just that their belief system should not influence government. And there's plenty of Christians that believe that as well. The founders of this nation were mostly deists, and some who were, you know, anti-theists or atheists, right? Very, very little, but most of them were deists. And one of the things that they actually agreed upon is that that separation of church and state should be a thing. It's called the Establishment Clause, and it's called part of the First Amendment in the Constitution, because they came from a place where the church was also the state, and that the king was also head of the church and state, and actually legislated and brought down policy and things of that nature onto the people. And they wanted to be separated from that. And this is what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, we have a class of people that have actually taken over our government that are Christian nationalists, Christian fascists. I would even argue that a lot of their thoughts and their values are not Christian at all. And this is from a person who practiced Christianity for a very long time. So, and because, like, to be honest with you, I would take one of the Christian nationalists that's on TV right now, some of those evangelicals that are, you know, that are all in the red camp, and put them against Jesus's teachings, and see which one stands up, to see which one is more Christian and which one's not. I really would. And we already know that people will cherry pick what they believe in order to actually set up a narrative to move forward. Okay, so let's just keep those things in mind when we're talking about this. And you know, and I'm glad, thank you, Sonja, for saying the things that you said, even though, like you said, I believe this, but I can't tell you what to decide, because I am not you. I am not in that situation. And at the end of the day, you who are in that situation have to make the best decision for you. And that's all we are saying, that we want people to be able to make the best decision that makes sense for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Well, we say ramen as well.
Ramen. Ramen. I like Shin ramen, by the way. Okay. Before I actually and now, if we have our minds are clear, our hearts are clear, I will now like to do my final skeptical insight. Thank you. Listen, everybody. First off, before I actually get into this, I really want to thank you for this being into the podcast. And normally I have like a statement actually written down and prepared before I do it. But this time I'm just spitting off the top of my dome. And I understand that a lot of you who are tuning into this broadcast have similar notions that they're scared, they're concerned, they're fearing what's beyond the pale come the changing of the guard in January. And guess what? I'm right with you. I am concerned about the things that's going to happen for myself, for the marginalized, for people who I know that happens to be in the LGBTQI plus community, people who happen to be in the Black community, people who happen to be immigrants, people who happen to be really just concerned about what's happening in the future. But one of the things that I would like to tell people is that we've been here before. We have. Remember, this is not the first time that Donald Trump has been president. And I know that those were not really great times. And I know that there's a plan in action that may get like about 60% done. It might happen. But one of the things that's going to make a difference in what happens in the next 4 years, it's not who's in office. It's not who's in Congress. It's not who's in the Senate. It's not even who's on the state and local representatives. It's you. It's you. It's me. It's those who are here who have committed to stay and push back against what is being done to us. Listen, it has been proven so many times over and over again that change does not come from the top down, it comes from the ground up. And when good people decide to organize and good people decide to coalesce together in order for change to happen for the right, it happens. So I encourage you, if you are listening to the sound of my voice, to get involved with your local government office, get involved with your school board, get involved with activist groups that have that are aligned with some of your values that you would like to get change. Make yourself educated on the different things that are happening. I have a lot of friends that'll tell me that they kind of want to check out of politics, or they don't do politics, but it's so important for you to really know what goes on, because information is power. Information can make you make the right decisions. Information is what this particular campaign was lacking to be part of one of the reasons why we did not get the outcomes that we were getting. So I want you all to take a deep breath. Don't drink too much. Stay hydrated. Stay close to your people. Check on your people. And don't check out. And as long as we have bandwidth, and as long as we have this particular platform, Skeptic Haven will be here. And I, along with my co-hosts and other panel and guests, will continue to bring you your 30 in 60. Now, I want to thank my guest for coming on today, Mandisa Thomas of Black Nonbelievers, Sonja Foster, my activist and good friend. Thank you guys so much for actually being here today. I thank you for your insight. I thank you for taking your time out on this Saturday. You could have been doing anything that you wanted to do, but you chose to be here, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. And both of us know that even though we talked very long on this program, we can both of us can also talk equally outside of this program because we have.
Yes.
So also, people, remember that Skeptic Haven does have other shows. So make sure that you tune in to the Skeptic Haven. Black on Mondays is Black Free Thinkers. I'm going to allow that whole thing to scroll again so that I can read it off. So again, don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. So we have Mondays, Black Free Thinkers, and Thursdays is the Sunny Spot. On Saturdays are the Global Atheists and Women Atheists Unload. And on Sundays is Let's Talk at 7 p.m. Central Time. Also, if you like what we do, and if you want to support Skeptic Haven, you can do so by, like I said, giving to super chats, and you can become a patron. Go to patreon.com/Skeptic Haven. Support what you believe in. We are here to give you all information and be able to talk to you about the goings on that's going on in the community and in the world. So please support what we do. We also want to thank all of our patrons for making this happen. Thank you so much to all of our patrons: Paul Kamish, Karen Butcher, Puck, Helen Green, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Eric Ozols, Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Sunny Shell, Aaron Colson, and Phil Calderon. And also, we are looking for volunteers, people, to help our channel become better and also grow. So if you are looking to possibly join us, please make sure that you are contacting us at skeptichaven@gmail.com. And also, I need to give another special shout out for the Black non-believers lending not only Miss Mandisa Thomas to the who is the president and founder of the organization. I am also not only just the host of Your 30 and 60, but I am also a lead affiliate organizer in Chicago, Illinois. And we also need your assistance in order for us to be able to spread the good news of the gospel of non-belief. No offense, Sonja. I love you anyway. So, but we don't just do just that. We actually hold space for people who happen to look like us, who are coming out of religion and need resources. And we also are doing talks that we're doing interfaith things where we are trying to organize and really help to make our world better. So please, if you can, from the top to the bottom, go to www.blacknonbelievers.org/donate, and please donate to the cause. Any last words, Miss Mandisa or Miss Sonja, before we happen to roll out of here on this Saturday?
I am so tempted to just remember Jesse Jackson's slogan back in the 80s: keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. We are so old enough. We're old enough
down with door.
Oh my gosh.
I told you we can definitely listen. You guys, y'all just don't know how we roll. Me and Mandisa, me and Sonja, I tell you, we can go all night with this stuff. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We totally can, because we all are, because all of us are in that particular realm. You know what? I forgot there was a question that I want to address before we go. This is actually from Dan D. So I'm going to read it. Question: in the Western Hemisphere, in the last 30 years, have elected 13 women, out of which 2 were not elected but positioned there because of coups. And then he also mentioned that in Latin America, machismo is definitely a thing, but they happen to elect women leaders at the top. What's wrong with the United States? And I just like to tell you, oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. That I think that one of the things that you are forgetting, sir, is that women did not have the right to vote until like 1921.
It's true.
Okay, it's a little bit over 100 years ago. Black people did not get the right to vote until 1866.
1966.
Well, no, I'm talking about, no, 1866 is when Black people, with the passing of the Equal Rights Amendment, not the Equal Rights Amendment, but the 14th Amendment. That's when
Okay.
Black people were actually given the right to
Yeah,
vote. But it was
before
only
Jim Crow.
right
Yeah,
before Jim
before
Crow.
Jim Crow.
That was
Yeah.
but and that was only for Black men. Okay, they had to codify voters' rights in 1965 for Black people and for other groups.
Yeah.
With the
And
with
it's
the
still not
Constitution.
permanent.
And it's still not
permanent.
permanent.
That's why they have the John Lewis, I think, Voting
Yes,
Rights
the Rights
Act.
Act.
Mhm.
Yes, that
Yep.
still hasn't gotten passed. So,
Yes.
guys, we're just saying all this is just that there's a lot of work to do in the United States. And
Mhm.
yes, machismo is a thing in Latin America, but it's cheese to the umpteenth power is a thing here in the United States of America.
Mhm. Yep.
I would say earlier when we were talking about offline, Mia Motley is the Prime Minister of Barbados. That's who I was mentioning beforehand.
Yeah.
Powerful woman. And like I said, she blasted the United States. So take a listen. So are there women there? It's just
we got
and we remember how Trump treated Angela Merkel from Germany.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that, okay, guys, we're gonna go. We gotta go. But you guys, thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you guys tune in next week with Women Atheos Unload. It's actually going to be coming up. Tune in on to other shows, all that great stuff. Like, share, comment down below. We want to hear your thoughts. We are going to update, like I said, the show notes with all the articles that we covered today, even some that we didn't cover. They are worth reading. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. And you all have a good rest of your Saturday. Peace.